Welcome to Beneficial Conversations, where we will explore the world of employee benefits and dive into the trends, challenges, and innovations shaping our industry. Join us as we sit down with industry leaders, HR professionals, policy experts, and thought leaders to discuss strategies for creating impactful benefit programs that support employees and drive organizational success. So, whether you're an employee, a consultant, or you're simply curious, Beneficial Conversations looks to provide valuable insights, actionable advice, and inspiring stories to help you navigate the future of work. Welcome to Beneficial Conversations. This is CJ Jordan, your host, and I'm joined by Lia Lansky, the Chief Wellbeing Officer for Baptist Hospital. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've kind of gotten to know each other in a roundabout way. I think you worked with my mom there at Baptist for a period of time, so she got us connected, which has been great. But I want to hear, as we get started, I want to hear a little bit about your background. Tell me a little bit about who you are and kind of what you're up to these days.
Perfect. Well, shout out to Beverly for connecting us. Thank you. My background when I was younger, I was a swimmer growing up, and so I've always been interested in wellness, physical activity, and so forth. And I didn't think I would be in this position today to help so many people. But when I was, younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I knew I wanted to swim in college. And so I went to University of Massachusetts, and they so
Right.
happened to have like this amazing exercise science program. And I'm like, okay, let's try that. And just fell in love with it. Just didn't know what I still wanted to do. I at that time I was in college. My grandfather had a heart attack, and that summer I had to come up with an internship. And so actually
Mhm.
I interned at Baptist where he was getting cardiac rehab.
Okay.
So it was kind of it's been full circle, but
Right.
I ended up then taking a week off of undergrad to go to grad school at University of Wisconsin La Crosse for cardiac rehab, exercise physiology with a specialty in cardiac rehab and adult fitness.
Okay.
And
So did you not want to kind of continue down the swimming path, or is that just something that wasn't necessarily going to be an option for you at that point, or did you just kind of fall in love with the education piece of
I just fell in love with the education piece. I just love teaching, people that are willing and ready to change, and
it?
getting the
Yep.
satisfaction from that. Mhm.
Okay.
So
All right. And so you kind of went to Wisconsin lacrosse, and then is that just kind of what happened from there?
yes, so I was cold, very cold in Wisconsin, and I looked at a map literally, and I said, "Okay, where can I dethaw?" And I had to
Yep.
choose a place to do an internship, and I chose Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
And
Quite the opposite.
yeah, but I was there for 16 years, but I went there for an internship in cardiac rehab. And at the time, a lot of exercise physiologists were not able to get jobs because of the nurses kind of had more pull in that area. And so it was very hard to get a job. And I was looking, and then this really unique opportunity came along where the cancer center at the Virginia G. Piper Cancer Center in Scottsdale was looking for an exercise physiologist to start a cancer exercise rehab program. And mind
Okay.
you, there were not a lot, if any, across the country back in 2001, 2002.
Right.
Yeah. And so I kind of was like, okay, let's take this on as a challenge. And I modeled it after the cardiac rehab education, and did the same sort of programming. Um, just did a lot of research on why cancer and exercise is so important. And it's so important because of the fatigue that cancer patients go through. Just doing a little bit of exercise really help combat that.
Interesting.
And also working with patients with mastectomies. They needed that extra little bit of exercise just to make sure that their range of motion was really the best that it could be. So that was
Sure.
I did that for 4 years, and that was a really rewarding job. Of course, a lot of them did make it, some did not. And I was in my early
Right.
20s, and it was hard emotionally.
Yeah.
But then I
Cannot imagine being in that kind of field and in that space and developing the relationships. And, some days are great and other days, like, I can't imagine the difficulty and the weightiness of that.
Yeah, I still remember my patients from back then, but yeah, and so then I decided, okay, well, Scottsdale has some really nice spas, and I'm like, well, let me just go dabble into the spa arena. So I went to the Marriott Camelback Inn and the Phoenician, two really five diamond resorts, and
Hmm.
learned really customer service, and I
Yep.
learned, how to work with folks that come through, and you only have one shot really to help them on their vacation journeys. So I did that for a little while, and then went over to the Camelback Village Health and Racket Club to be a personal trainer, and then pretty much immediately got promoted to the fitness director role, where I was over an 85,000 square foot facility with like 15 tennis courts, basketball
Nice.
court, huge weight room, cardio area,
Yeah.
had, a staff of 20 trainers. And that was awesome. I did that for 11 years. It was a little bit of everything, where we worked with people that really needed the help, people that uh, really wanted to be there. So that was nice.
Yep.
And then after 11 years, I decided to move back to Memphis, my hometown.
All right. And so tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Memphis now.
Sure. So about 2017, Baptist decided, hey, we're a healthcare system. We should have our own well-being program.
Hmm.
We were using a different third party, and we were only getting 14% participation. And we found that it was only like really within the healthier population that were participating. And our vice president at the time, Dr. DePriest, uh, who has since retired, but really was a formative figure in making Best Health happen.
Yeah.
He said, "Hey, we're a healthcare system. Why do we need to rely on others to make this, full population health model?" So we partnered with In Health Strategies, and they are really our analytics arm of Best Health. And
Hmm.
the key leaders asked for a grant from our Baptist Foundation for $1 million in order
Okay.
to get this launched. So
Yeah.
they were serious about it. They were really
Yeah.
serious about changing the culture, changing lives, and really helping um, the people that are helping our patients. And so shortly after the grant, I was able to be hired into this position as a system director of well-being. It was the first
Mhm.
ever that Baptist had had, and was able to hire the team. So on the team right now, we have well-being specialists, and they're kind of like health coaches, but they
Cool.
all have their master's degrees in the fields of exercise science, exercise physiology, nutrition, health promotion.
Yep.
We have a registered dietitian now, which I'm super excited about. And then we have nurses. We call them care coordinators, and
Yep.
they work with a lot of the chronic diseases or conditions that we see.
Sure. And so since, you said initially things started out at 14% engagement with maybe the initial wellness program that was in place, prior to you coming on, and what has it looked like kind of since y'all have taken over and implemented kind of your strategies and approach?
Yeah, so it did take some time to increase the
Sure.
participation, but immediately the first year we went to about 69% in the first year
Okay.
alone. So
I was thinking, like, when you prefaced it, I was thinking, we got up to maybe like 20%. 60, I mean, north of 60 is a huge jump. That's incredible.
But now we're 7 years in and we're at 97% participation.
Wow.
And out of those 97% that did a biometric screening, 92% had an annual wellness visit.
That's incredible. And just for context, I mean, just I know given my background and history and stuff like that, we're not talking like 92% of, 150 employees. I mean, Baptist employees, how many employees is it now?
I'm glad you asked. We have over 13,000 that are on the health insurance plan, and
Yeah.
we are growing, growing, growing. This year, we're adding at least 2,000 more with the addition of Baptist Anderson in Meridian, Mississippi.
Wow. So 92%, you said it was over 92% engagement, but 92% at least went and got their biometric annual screening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's insane. So I mean, let's kind of take this step by step. I mean, going from 14% to over 60 in just 1 year, is pretty significant. So what were some of the building blocks, just the foundational principles that y'all implemented in terms of trying to drive that engagement? Because I feel like that's the question that everybody asks around wellness programs and, stuff like that. It's like, well, nobody wants to do it, but I mean, clearly people do.
This is definitely a multi-layered question. You definitely have to start with your key stakeholders being 100% on board.
Mm-hmm.
And our CEO, Mr. Jason Little, was all in on it. Nancy Averwater, who's the Chief Human Resources Officer, Executive Vice President, and at the time, Dr. DePriest, they were just superstars wanting to make this happen. And so when you get the key stakeholders buy-in, and then we formed a core leadership committee specifically for this,
Mm-hmm.
that it's important to take
Right.
care of our own. So we started by really having champions at each of the different locations, and the
Mm-hmm.
champions really helped with communication because it's hard when you have 23, 24 hospitals and clinics to get the message across. So, I do think it's important for organizations to have really, really rich, robust incentives,
Yes.
which we did. And our incentive program, it's a combination, I feel like, of outcome based and engagement based.
Okay.
So I guess I'll back up and explain what I mean. So
Yeah. No. No. Perfect. Yeah.
yeah,
Great.
so outcome based, if they go for their biometric screening and they're in the optimal level for their BMI, their blood pressure, and their glucose, then they automatically will receive the particular incentive associated with it. If they are not, then the engagement piece comes into play. So they're able
Sure.
to, just by joining our programming, be
Okay.
able to earn the full amount. So everybody should
Sure.
be, you know, going and spending their, max of $300 in our award code gift card mall
Mhm.
um, each and every year.
Yeah. Okay. And so, but it doesn't sound like you're necessarily being penalized, right? Like, we talk about carrot and stick. Like, we've got this option out here where if you go and get your, biometric screenings and you do happen to be in those nice categories, you'll be rewarded for it. Or if you're putting in the effort, but there is the option maybe for the 8% that aren't doing it. They're not necessarily being penalized per se, but they're just not receiving like the rewards of it. Is that fair?
Well, the next portion I was going to discuss was yes, we do have a stick.
Okay, all right.
Um, yes, I think it's definitely important to look at your tobacco population, and we studied our tobacco population, and we noticed that our tobacco users were costing costing our plan $1,200 more per year than our non-tobacco users. So we do have tobacco testing where
Okay.
it's not just they tell us if they use tobacco or not. We actually we actually test them either by
Hmm.
urine or by blood, depending on what clinic they go to.
Sure.
And if they test positive, then of course you absolutely have to have an alternative. And we have our tobacco cessation course that
Yep.
we created that really is evidence based through Duke and UNC. We got the materials, and we've created the program. And each year we have so many people that go through it. A lot of people cut back, a lot of people quit. Sometimes takes multiple times for
Sure.
quit attempts. And then
Yep.
we've caught a few stages of early stage lung cancer by
Wow.
by
Okay.
having this program. So it's so important. So we do have the stick, so we do want people to participate. And we found a lot of people have never been to the doctor before, and they're in their 50s and 60s, and they find out they have diabetes. And so we
Hmm.
want to catch things early. We used to go on site and do biometric screenings, but
Yep.
COVID kind of took us out of doing that, and actually was a blessing because now everyone has a primary care provider. And that is just
Hmm.
so important. So they're not going to the ER, they're not going to urgent cares, and you have somebody
100%.
that really knows, your medical history. And so that's worked out really, really nicely.
Well, I think you had told me a statistic at some point in one of our previous conversations. It's something like if an employee goes to get their annual wellness screening in back-to-back years or maybe in 2 consecutive years or something, that it's you see, is it 9%
Mhm.
savings, over the course of the year?
Yes, that is exactly right. 9%. So, I mean, just think if they continue to do that, I mean, that's just going to grow, and we'll see the ROI, of having
Because
this population.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot of it is based on, you go see your doctor and you establish kind of a baseline of numbers, and then the next year, hopefully you're going back and having that again, but they're able to evaluate any, changes within those numbers and potentially, catch some of those things earlier so that we're not dealing with those catastrophic claims a little bit later. It's, hey, let's get you on, some different type of medication to bring blood pressure, high cholesterol down, or something along those lines. I mean, is that kind of where you're seeing that savings happen? Is just the ability to capture those, changes in numbers earlier?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. It's kind of a two-parter. So we have our primary care that's working with them, seeing their numbers, and then we also have an app portal that they do a health risk questionnaire, and we combine it with their actual biometric screening. So we'll get
Hmm.
a number each and every year called Know Your Number, and
Okay.
we can monitor someone from year to year and see if their risk is actually increasing, staying the same, or decreasing.
Okay.
And the also on the reports, we can also see their any modifiable risk factors. We can go in and say, okay, well, let's offer them a weight management program. Let's offer them the diabetes program. We can also just do a predictive model to see if they have a chance in the next 5 years of having a chronic condition. So we can kind of get ahead of the game and start to put them into our programming.
And that's interesting because I know, obviously tobacco is the one that kind of leads the way, as far as I think I remember seeing a TED talk and a guy was trying to make a point and, but he walks out and he lights up a cigarette in the middle of the, little red circle and he's like, oh yeah, everybody's freaking out. And then he pulls out a candy bar and starts eating it. And he's like, nobody's going to react to this. He said, this candy bar in some cases is a worse driver of health outcomes than you would see on the tobacco side. So when you talk about the diabetes, like, is that becoming an increasing, is that almost overtaking the tobacco piece in terms of obesity, clinically or, overweight, that category? Because I think as you and I both know, just from being in the space, it's becoming a problem throughout America, especially in the South.
Yes.
We love our butter. But is that almost overtaking, the tobacco piece as far as like a target that groups are trying to tackle?
I do get a lot more questions now on weight management programs and diabetes programming, especially because the GLP-1s are so
Sure.
rampant now. But
Hmm.
the diabetes program that we have here at Baptist is really, really special because we want to make sure that they know that we're going to help them manage their condition, and even maybe try to reverse it would be like the absolute
Hmm.
goal.
Right.
But we just by meeting, some specific requirements in the program, it could be meeting with a nurse, meeting with a well-being specialist, meeting with a dietitian. Um, then we give their medications and their supplies free of charge, anything that's on our formulary. So it's actually a
Okay.
really good recruitment and retention tool as
Right.
well. And that's what I tell organizations. You want to take care of your diabetic population just because those costs can really get out of hand for unmanaged
Right.
care. And so, you know, still tobacco is really high up there because you have the risk of lung cancers
Yeah.
and other problems down the road. But diabetes is definitely, and obesity is one that, we're trying to tackle. A lot of um, program or a lot of organizations are coming to us asking like, well, should we cover GLP-1s? Should we not cover them? And it's
Yeah,
hard.
that is a question that we get asked frequently, and I don't know that there's a right way to answer it for every group. It's usually a longer conversation. It doesn't just happen over one, and because there's a lot of things to consider, and it's a very complex issue with not knowing all the long-term effects of it. So it's yeah, we're handling and fielding a lot of those questions as well.
Mhm.
So obviously we've talked a lot about the Baptist side, but y'all don't just you and your team does not just work specifically with Baptist. Y'all, have kind of expanded this to outside, groups and maybe not the 13,000 plus people on, a health insurance plan. So, you know, you have the ability at a company size of that level to be able to do a lot of different things. So let's scale it back a little bit for maybe some of the smaller ones that say, well, I don't have $1 million grant to be able to implement something like this. So, bringing it back down a little bit, kind of talk through some of what y'all been able to accomplish, even with some of these smaller groups that, are wanting to implement wellness programs, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Great. So I wasn't even allowed to go talk to anyone, any other organizations, until for at least 5 years until we got,
Right.
the metrics that were
Right.
solid, and we were like, okay, we are
Proof of concept.
1,000% confident that we could help other organizations. So finally, we surpassed the 5 years, and I was able to go out and talk to other organizations. And nothing is cookie cutter with us, which I like to tell people because you're going to have different size organizations that need different things. And so we would come to the table first and just kind of do an analysis and see what you have, what you need. If there's any claims that we can look at, we would, do like an opportunity analysis and assessment. Then we could just kind of see the culture, and the state of the wellness of your population. Then we can go a couple of different ways. We can do a full scale population health model, which I think that having everything in one place and having all the services there and being able to really move the needle on the population, that's the route that I would, you know, go if you can,
Mm-hmm.
and come up with some sort of rich incentive model. However, some organizations aren't ready to do that, and
Right.
they want to just kind of dip their toe into it. So in that case, we have an a la carte, you know, services that we can do. Like
Right.
if you notice, okay, we're really getting a ton of diabetes claims coming through, then we can come in and do the diabetes programming. Or you see people smoking at the water cooler, more than you have in the past. We can come in and do
Mm-hmm.
tobacco cessation. I mean, it's kind of whatever the organization needs. We want to help. Baptist is really our mission is healing, preaching, and teaching, and we want to go out
Yeah.
and teach the community how to be healthy, so they don't come to our hospital if they don't
Right.
need to.
Right. Well, is there a typical like first, almost like a baseline, wellness piece that you implement almost with every group, just at its core, like at a minimum, this is the first thing that we're going to do, or this is what we're going to do, like just the most core tenet of the wellness program?
I think the best route to go is to schedule the annual wellness visit biometric screenings, especially if an organization does not have any data for us. So that would be the
Mm-hmm.
first step, and then that way, after we get those results, we can risk stratify into low, medium, high priority, and we can put uh, the different folks into the different buckets, and then we can
Mm-hmm.
go from there. So with the priority and the high, most likely we're going to call them and ask them if they would like to do, one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
coaching with a nurse or a wellbeing specialist. If they're a little bit lower of a priority, then we can offer the group classes to them. So if we can slice and dice really however we want. If we wanted to go look and see all the people that have the BMI of over 30, we can take that list and just invite them to a weight management program.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see maybe like on the questionnaires that we have them do, there's like depression and stress score. We can take those scores and invite them to our emotional well-being uh, presentations. So it's there's so much you can do, but I think the best place to answer your question is to start with a biometric screening and getting them set up with a medical home.
Sure. And so when you talk about kind of bringing these programs into companies, obviously your leadership is going to be involved. Maybe it's the president, CEO, obviously going to be HR, maybe CFO, just to be able to see the ROI. Do you ever have groups that want to bring in maybe key stakeholders or maybe people that, you would call champions into the conversations early so that you can get an employee's perspective on things? Because maybe sometimes leadership has a view of what a wellness program could and should look like, but maybe an employee doesn't necessarily jive with that. So what does kind of that experience look like, or what does that look like for you from your side, or do you have thoughts on maybe how it should look in some of those conversations?
I love this question. So it usually starts with HR and
Right,
the CEO, CFO. That's usually where it starts. And
right.
then it kind of, then we work with a broker, or it could be vice versa. We work with a broker and then we get introduced to the company. Either way.
Right.
But I really, really like your idea of having an employee come in to do have an employees forum to say, okay, we're really needing this. I noticed my colleagues are stressed out about this, or they are not taking good care of themselves, or answering their emails in the middle of the night because they don't have time during the day. But that has not happened yet where we bring in certain employees, but that is a great suggestion.
Well, I just feel like, obviously they're not going to have the buying, right?
Right.
Like I'm not suggesting that you bring employees in to, make a decision on, some of this, but I just feel like sometimes maybe there's a level of skepticism with employees if, a company drops a wellness program. But I feel like if you have some of these key stakeholders after you've had some conversations and stuff like that, again, I'm not suggesting they come in the first meeting, but if you have some of these key people in the organization to come and understand the why behind the what, that they can continue to be your champions moving forward. Hey, this is why we want to do this. We want to help you be healthier. We want you to, this, that, and the other. It's not just a mandate that's being forced down your throat by corporate, I guess.
Right. And I think the most often asked question is, who's going to see my results? The privacy and
Great point.
security of it all. And at Best Health, we take things very seriously. We only give aggregate reports. We don't give individual names
Mm-hmm.
to any, HR leader or any manager or so forth. It is all confidential, and I take that very seriously. And if you don't, you're never going to get the buy-in. So
Right.
when we were first establishing Best Health in 2018, I mean, that was the most often asked question. And so my job that year was to make them feel comfortable. Like no one is going to have your results except for us to decide on what programs we want to offer, or if we wanted to personally invite you to take a program and utilize us as a benefit.
Hmm. And so, how do you continue to maybe engage with the skeptical or the disengaged? Like, what are there any, outside the box things, or is it just kind of consistent, taps to say, hey, we're still here, we're still doing this? Like, how do you continue to reach? You went from 60+% to 90. So how did you continue to just increase the level of engagement?
I think a lot of it is word of mouth.
Mhm.
People get excited for the incentives, and people want those incentives,
Sure.
to be honest,
Money
because it
talks.
comes right before the holiday time, and
Uh-huh.
it really helps. But I think over the years, we've just created such, a solid program that people trust us. And that means a lot, of course. And I rarely get those questions anymore. I really don't.
Hmm.
It was, the first couple of years I did. And then now it's kind of like, okay, well, they're here, and
Yeah.
they're here to help.
Yeah. And so, we talked, and you touched on this a minute ago, and we've talked, a little bit about the tobacco side, the diabetes side, but, a little while ago, you said something about, the stressed out answering emails in the middle of the night and the burnout and kind of the mental health piece. Has that become a bigger, portion of the wellness programs? Like, what does that look like for y'all now versus maybe a couple of years ago?
Great question. So we partner with our Concern EAP program here, and we really had a great idea right when we were going through COVID. Uh, our counselors, they can only see so many people, and we're like, I wonder if we can put a group class together on emotional well-being. And so in 2021 or 2022, we started the group classes with a concerned EAP counselor, along with one of our wellbeing specialists, would lead the series, and we would do it every other month. Every Tuesday, we'd have a 7:30 in the morning and a 12. It is still going strong. We are still
Wow.
getting over 500 people joining each and
Wow.
every month. That And they're on topics like self-care is not selfish, saying no, grief 101, just really this month it's on spring cleaning and decluttering. So it's been one of our most successful programs.
No, I love that. I mean, it continues to be, a hot topic these days. And so I know there's a lot more emphasis being put on it. And, it's kind of the one I think that, you can see the people who are obviously, your smokers, or you might be able to see the people who are dealing with obesity and stuff like that. But the mental piece is just something that's not seen, and, still a stigma attached to it. And so just being able to offer support, I think, is just becoming such an increasingly important part of a wellness program, that it's not just physical, but it's also, mentally and emotional.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully we'll still get the participation in it that we've had. And we just have to keep making each program exciting. And you don't want to really keep it the same, because nobody's gonna want to join. And so the goal of Best Health is just to change, keep adding. For instance, each year we try to add a certain pillar of well-being. So last
Hmm.
year we added a hypertension class,
Okay.
taught by our nurses. This year, we're adding financial well-being, because that goes hand in hand with stress and depression and your whole
For sure.
physical. So we try to make it a whole holistic. So after we add this financial well-being pillar, I think we've gotten all the pillars of well-being covered. So that's pretty exciting. But there's always new things coming out. For instance, last year, I believe the Surgeon General was like loneliness. That's a hot topic where that can really be, as bad as smoking if you're lonely. So I think that's another area that I'm interested in exploring, to see how we can connect people. Um, with social media and
Mhm.
with people being on their phones more, they're disengaging from being social and having those up close and personal interactions. So
Right.
that's something that I would like to explore going forward.
How do y'all, typically, again, not just with Baptist, but just with some of the other groups that y'all work with, how are you typically measuring the ROI of, the effectiveness of the program? Like once it's implemented, being able to turn around and say, hey, we've been able to do X, Y, Z.
So I have my little metrics here.
Yes.
So we did look at it and we realized a $6.50 to $1 ROI based on our full population health model.
Right.
We figured that our per member per month is about 158 per month lower than the healthcare provider average trend. So we
Right.
try to
Okay.
keep and
So
we budget.
speak to that just a little bit more.
I'm sorry, what?
Speak to that just a little bit more. You said $158 below the healthcare average trend.
Mm-hmm. So we look at all of the different uh, claims, pharmacy, um, everything that goes into it, and we're able to track how we compare to like the Milliman data and the in-health strategies book of business. We're able to look and see, okay, are we keeping our healthcare spend down? And
Mm-hmm.
we tend to budget lower at Baptist than the national average because we feel like we can do it, and we've done it. I think the national healthcare spend was maybe, I don't want to guess. I don't want to say it on here and not be right.
Well, no, I mean, I think I saw last I saw for like a family for the average cost for a family on an employer sponsored health plan, the total cost was north of 26,000
Yeah,
on average, which is just
it
outrageous.
is. It's growing and growing. So having an employer that really cares and is able to help control the costs will just benefit you in more ways than you can think of. I don't know about you, but I can't imagine like anything more important in your budget line um, than the people that you actually employ every day. And so by
Right.
implementing this, you can spend a little right now, or you can spend a lot later. There
Yeah.
is an initial investment that you would want to do, but I mean, I would be hard pressed to come up with something on your budget line more valuable than the people that are going to help keep your business going.
Do you see kind of, I say immediate, it's kind of the only one that I can think of right now, but do you see some immediate ROI on things, or does it take a little bit of time to be able to realize some of that return? Like, I don't want people to get this idea that you implement a wellness program and some of this stuff, and then 3 months later you're saving XYZ. Like, I feel like, does it have to be a little bit of time for people to be able to say, hey, let's give it a year, 18 months, something like that, so that we can actually tell you a little bit about that? Or is it even sooner? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you can really see benefits within the first few weeks of employee engagement as people become healthier, happier, more productive. So, I mean, that will be hard to measure right away, but
Sure.
you'll get the anecdotal
Hmm.
stories. But in terms of measuring like the actual results that are driven by the employer's adoption to a well-being program and changing the culture, that's going to take time. I
Right.
think a program on average should give it about 3 years for you to see
Yep.
results, and that's kind of how we. That's sort of the average. I think that most organizations will see results.
Okay. And so let's talk about the flip side of things. And obviously it would never be one that Leah is a part of, but maybe ones that you've heard. Like, what about the flip side of ones that maybe you've had a conversation with a group and they said, we tried this a couple of years ago and it just didn't work. Like, what are things that you've heard other organizations try and maybe you've learned, hey, okay, we don't need to take that approach. So maybe wellness flops, not by y'all, of course,
No.
but just wellness flops that y'all have heard, and what you've kind of identified as far as, hey, I want to stay away from that.
Well, the number one is making sure your organization has a really rich incentive model. If
Okay.
employees are not, I mean, it's a shame that employees don't want to get healthier on their own. But you need, I mean, it's our, culture today. You have to have, something dangling, for
Right.
them. And so if you're only going to give, um, a little bit, you're not going to get a lot of participation.
Sure.
And of course, you have to abide by the laws of how much you can actually, give out. But
Hmm.
I'm not going to talk about about the legal.
That is a
That's
whole
a
separate, that's
whole
a whole
other.
separate podcast.
You just want to cover yourself, but
Sure.
definitely, that's where you should bring in the employees to kind of say, hey, how much would you, go and get a wellness visit? What would you, I guess, want in return? Just doing
Hmm.
surveys. And for us, the magic number is 300, 100 for an annual wellness visit, 100 if your BMI is within range, 50 for glucose, 50 for blood pressure. And of course, if you don't earn it, you can earn it, during doing the programs. So,
Sure.
but I mean, everybody should get $100 at least for just going to
Right.
the doctor. And I think that's a big deal, to a lot of people. Um, it can make a difference.
Yeah. And so is that something that you found you can tweak at times? Like, does it make sense to start lower maybe and, see what the engagement looks like? And then, if it's not where we want, okay, well then let's try to increase that incentive a little bit. Or do you try to start high? Or is it just kind of a feel for things
Yeah,
I guess what the,
you can't start too high and take things away for sure.
yeah.
But you can start lower and then you can increase it. So with an organization that we're working with right now, we've added like some drawings, if
Hmm.
they have certain points that they accumulate.
Sure.
And one company is doing a huge flat screen TV,
Yeah.
a laptop, $250 gift card, just by seeing if they can participate in as many classes, do their biometric screening, annual wellness visit. And that's actually been working. So, in addition to what they had the previous year, just keeping,
Hmm.
adding on, making it exciting will certainly help.
Okay. Do you what's the biggest misconception that you've kind of come across in the wellness program space as far as what you hear from groups or, what's the thing that you hear that you're like, well, that may not necessarily be true?
Some of the organizations are just scared, I think, to start it because it's going to take a lot of
Yeah.
time and energy, um, and they're afraid of the laws, and getting lawsuits or having lawsuits
Hmm.
brought upon the organization. But with the proper legal counsel, having you know vetted any well-being organization that you have coming in to help you, I mean, you really shouldn't have a heavy lift. You
Yeah.
really, that's the point of us going out to other organizations. We don't want HR to have a lot more on their plates. They're busy enough. So
Yeah.
we want to take that off of theirs and add it to our offerings where we can just provide them aggregate reports. We can do yearly, quarterly, um, depending on how much information we get. If they're self insured, usually we get a lot of data that we can
Hmm.
comb through and give out really, really rich reports. And that way you really know each and every quarter how you're doing and what is. We really watch closely on the pharmacy spend to see
Yeah.
what medications are at the top and
Yeah.
going from there. And if we can switch over to biosimilars, we do that. And so pharmacy is a really big benefit for our program.
Yeah.
We have them really working with our diabetics and making sure they're, adhering to their medication, or if they are on, too much or need to be switched to another one.
Hmm.
We watch that really closely.
So y'all can work with, if a group has a certain PBM vendor that's in place, y'all can kind of work in tandem with that PBM to kind of
Yes.
analyze everything and kind of step in or give thoughts,
Hmm.
when the opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely. We definitely welcome that. We're doing that with a couple of our organizations right now.
And just to go back to the HR side, because I want to make sure that we, kind of communicate this. So you're saying that the lift from the HR side doesn't have, like, they don't have to be the ones in charge of doing all this and running the program. It's y'all are the ones, obviously we need the buy-in from them and everything, but it's you and it's your team that are the ones that are really handling the engagement, the communication and all that. HR's there to help and, receive some of the reports and stuff like that, but it's not incumbent on them
Right.
to really fully implement and track it, right?
We
Okay.
really don't want HR to be like too involved, just because we want the trust that from the participants,
Mhm.
in order for them to feel comfortable doing the screenings and taking the classes. And if they're a tobacco user, we don't want to let their managers know that they necessarily are taking our classes. um, we just want to make sure it's as confidential as possible. So on the HR side, I mean, they can know basic, answers to questions, but we
Sure.
really want them just to refer them to us. Let us take it all on.
Delegate, delegate, delegate.
Hmm. Exactly.
um, have you seen any, odd or strange wellness programs that have been implemented or some tactics that worked or didn't? I'm curious on like some of the outside of the box stuff that you've either come across or seen.
Well, I guess some of the things I don't understand are organizations that use like a million different vendors
Uh-huh.
to bring in the wellness programming, only because it's like, okay, well, how do you get a clear picture of your population? I mean, I
Yeah.
can see a few different vendors, but I've seen a lot with, I've seen a few with just, something for weight management, diabetes, um, tobacco. I mean, every which way you go. And I'm like, how do you keep up with that? I just think it's better to have it all in one place if you can.
Well, I feel like, and it probably makes more sense just from the employee standpoint as far as knowing where to go. Like if you're overwhelmed with, well, I've got to go here for this or this or this, that you just kind of get to a point where you throw your hands up and it's like, look, forget it. I'm not going to, you know, try to call this number and then be redirected and then be redirected or what have you. So I can see how, that could be overwhelming.
Yeah, one app that does it all. One phone
Yeah.
number that does it all. Yes.
So give me your kind of 3 to 5 year look when it comes to wellness. Like, what do you kind of see coming down the line as far as programs? What are, without giving away the secret sauce and stuff, what are y'all paying attention to? What are you kind of just personally seeing out there? What does the future look like?
Well, I'm definitely keeping my eyes out on GLP-1s, seeing if those
Yeah.
prices come down for the greater good of our population. I'm also seeing what studies are coming out as far as GLP-1s and in the future. Um, so that'll be interesting to see the more longer term results. And then also AI. Um, let's see what
Yeah.
AI can help with us in the wellness community. Can we use AI for more predictions? Can we use it, you know, to risk stratify a little bit better and make our processes better? So I'm really looking for AI to help and not hurt. Of course,
Right.
AI does not replace the human contact. So
Yeah.
once we find out the information, then you will have human contact with a nurse or a well-being specialist or dietitian. But in
Hmm.
order to get to that point where we can offer that, we want to just speed up the process to see who needs that help.
Right. Yeah. Just create some efficiencies without completely automating the person out of the experience.
Yes, because I mean, there's tons and tons of apps out there where you just don't talk to anybody, and
Hmm.
I really want to keep our program where it's just very personalized model.
Okay. All right, here's my last question, and then I'll let you get out of here. Normally, I ask it on the front end, but we just hopped right into it because it was going well. I need to hear the best meal that you've had. It can be at home, it can be anywhere. I need to hear about the best meal that you've had, and we'll let you get out of
Oh goodness, the best healthy meal. This is my go-to. I
here.
I love poke bowls. Um,
Okay, I can get on board with this.
Okay, yes. So with the salad, the greens on the bottom, If I'm in the mood, I'll put a little bit of rice, but try not to. And then I'll put edamame, seaweed salad, raw salmon, double that, ponzu sauce, and crispy onions, and I am good to go. Oh, avocado.
Man,
Don't forget the avocado. That is my
another
favorite. I
benefit.
have that for lunch probably 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah, I could go that route 5 days a week and be happy as can be.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I'm
Leah,
hungry.
thank you so much. This was phenomenal. Like, I appreciate so much just hearing about your experience, what y'all are doing. I mean, it's clear that the work that y'all are doing is, working and it's making a difference. And, hopefully we can just continue to help more organizations understand, how something like this can be a benefit for their employees, but also for the employer as a whole in terms of just trying to drive down those costs. So you are the best,
Thank
and
you.
I appreciate you taking some time this morning.
Thank you, CJ.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.